Now here's a position that doesn't look so bad for the defender, unless you know as the attacker that this is the absolute seventh extension. If we slid this position all the way over to the H file, this is the absolute seventh position we talked about, where the queen is a knight's move away from the king, trapping it, and it forces the rook to go to the other edge of the board, where it can usually be picked up with a fork. When you're away from the edge of the board, anytime you can form this position as the attacker, it's good, because you force the other side to walk all the way to the H file here, and there's nothing the guy can do about it. As you can see, the king has no really smart moves. Going to F5 here is the only king move, but it loses right away to that check, followed by that check, spearing the rook. So that leaves rook moves, and as you can see, the king and the queen together are controlling an awful lot of territory. In fact, the only move where the rook isn't going to go lost immediately or very nearly immediately, notice that any movement down the E file loses to a spear from E8 check, king has to move aside and the rook is taken. And pretty much everything along this row is covered either now or by a fork from E8 except F5. So the defender's only option is to go there, check here, he's got to fall back, and we've just moved the position one row to the right. Same pattern exists. He has to go there, check him back, and move up. Doesn't matter where you start from. You march the guy all the way to the edge of the board. Now he can afford to detach the king from the rook, because taking the rook is an immediate stalemate. So remember that absolute seventh extension position. Anytime you can form it, you're going to walk the guy all the way to the edge of the board. Just like that. You don't even have to think. It's great if you're on increment only. And all you have to know is, what's the key move here? The answer is to go there. Split the king and the rook. Now there's no longer a threat of stalemate. So what's going to happen is the rook goes in front of the king, and we've talked in other videos about how you break down corner defenses. We need to move the king forward. We're going to get a check there. That's okay. We're making progress. The king, ultimately in the Philidor position, wants to end up on F6, and he's just one move away. And now you remember that the queen wants to be on the long diagonal. So from here, well, give a check, never a bad thing to do. Moves over here, and the rook is now cornered. It's just got no safe place to go. On the 6th rank, it can fall back, but that leads to an immediate cage with king g6. And if it goes down the H file, well, any attempt to save the rook leads to king f6 check, followed by checkmate. Looking at our next sample position, it's important to know that making the absolute seventh extension happen again leads to a quick win for white. If he falls back here, now we check here because we're pinning the king to the rook. He can't go to the E file or the rook is immediately lost, and he can't go to G7, so that forces this move. Pay attention to this position. This is the trapezoid position. That's my name for it. I needed a name for it. If black is to move in this position, black is lost. It's just simply zugzwang, and you'll see why in a minute. So the question is, how do you transfer the move to black here? It's a very simple procedure. Come down here and give check. Spear the rook through the king again, forcing him back to where he was, and recreate the position. Now here's the problem. The king is obstructing the rook along the 8th rank. The rook is under attack, so the king is pinned to it and can't move away. That leaves rook moves along the g file, but the queen's position already covers this square. This square is forked from here, this square is forked from here, and this square is forked from here. Everything else is covered by the white king, so black is pretty much dead here. If he checks there, you just come forward. There are now two mate threats on the board, and black can't stop both of them. And we have another absolute seventh extension here. White to move, of course, would check from f7 and pick up the rook. But again, the defender has to simply walk to the edge of the board. Now, we're one file lower down the board, one rank lower down than we were. So it's good to know that instead of going queen d5, I'm sorry, which we can do here, we can. It's okay to do queen d5 and just stick with that idea. If you can give that check, it's okay to do it. That's about the only good thing to do is block, and now your king can start walking toward the action here. And we end up with this position. Again, as the defender, it's always wise to move toward the center of the board. So let's check here, and let's check here, and form a wedge. This is tricky for both sides. If the defender goes there, which is reasonable, fall back. We've got a corner defense, and as we've seen several times, the queen really likes to be on the long diagonal, spearing that corner. So the king is going to try to escape from the corner. We go there. Naturally, you give a check, and we have one of our cages on the board. Come here. Queen goes there. Absolute seventh. And in another video, you've seen how to win from here. The rook pretty much has to come down to f1, and then you hunt it down using checks from the diagonal and ending up with the triple threat position.